Welcome, viewers, back to the Preaching Humanist with David Oliverio. That is I, where no God is required, and the good life is guided by reason, motivated by love, and informed by science. So I'm going to continue part 2 of Atheism, A Better Life. Last episode I discussed different areas in our life that tend to increase with those of us who were once very Christian or religious and were free. So part 1 was the beautiful thing we experience when we let go of supernatural beliefs called freedom. So I'm going to go on with a couple other areas that many of us who were once very Christian experience in our life. And boy, I get it all the time with Christians and others. And once they know I'm an atheist, they say, "Oh, you poor thing, David." Oh, and I say, "No, don't say poor thing. I'm happier now." So my experience, I would say at least 85 to 90% people that are atheists now, who were once very Christian, would agree. And as I asked them to give me their testimony, most of them would say they have a better life. They're happier, they're more moral, and in most ways, their life increases for the good. I do want to make a very important statement right now. I said this on part 1 of this episode. I want to make sure that you understand I'm not advocating that we should have a atheist religion or a secular religion. This is not Chairman Mao communism. This is not Joseph Stalin communism. All I'm saying is that we have evidence worldwide and quantitative data and evidence that secular societies where there are a higher percentage of atheists and less religion, we have healthier and more peaceful societies. So let's continue. Part 2 of Atheism, A Better Life. Let's go on with something I like to say. Once we let go of supernatural belief systems, most of us tend to increase and do a little better with decision making. So I would say number 2 would be better decision making. A supernatural believers, let's include Christians in there, their perception of reality can be very skewed. And now that sounds so mean, but it's so true. When you're free from these supernatural concepts, we tend to make decisions easier and better. Being free from supernatural concepts seems to enable one to focus on reality and being informed by science and reason. We tend to make decisions better because we think more clearly. The life of reason over the life of faith. Now, let me give you a little example of what goes on in several churches. Now, my background, I remember hearing this from the pulpit and myself when I would say this to Christians when I was a preacher. There's always this up in the valley, down in the valley, and a mountaintop experience. It seems to be kind of an up and down lifestyle of emotional. I would call it the emotional roller coaster. And a lot of preachers like to tell their flock that the Lord's going to come through and deliver you from hard times. Now, for me, in my life years ago as a young preacher, when I was faithing and praying instead of thinking, I made a lot of bad choices in my life. My decision making was based upon what I felt the Lord was saying for me to do. I encounter a lot of believers that say, well, you know, before I make any decisions, I must pray about it. I must ask the Lord what He tells me to do in this particular situation. So I would say no more faith, but thinking. No more praying, but thinking and receiving counsel from other human beings. And that's the beauty of being free from Christianity and other supernatural belief systems. We can make better choices and decisions in our life. And then we can look at human hands that solve human problems. We don't have to worry about the faithing part and the praying part. Now, I remember one time, many, many years ago, back in the 80s, I was a young preacher, and I felt that the Lord spoke to my heart, right? I needed to make a decision in my life. So, of course, I went to the Lord in prayer instead of just using my mind and thinking. So I dragged my wife at the time and my 2 small children from Waco, Texas, leaving the little church that I started. I left the church with my 2 assistants and my co-pastors. And I took off to the Phoenix area to help an older preacher with his church. I made a lot of costly decisions based on faith rather than on reason. So yeah, I'm going to say definitely it increases reason and rationality when we let go of these primitive supernatural beliefs. So yeah, it does increase and give us better decision making in our lives. Now I want to go on to number 3. Here's something else I find to be very true. And when I interview my fellow atheists, I love to go to atheist groups and meetup groups and talk to atheists who were once very, very Christian. And I love to hear their reverse testimony on how they came out of Christianity into atheism. And most of them would say, oh, my life is so much better. And they would agree that since I've been an atheist, it tends to increase the value of one's life. I have experienced that in my life, and many others will say, the value of my life seems to increase. So without belief in the supernatural, and that belief of immortality, right, going on to be with Jesus in heaven, once you rid yourself of these thoughts and these concepts, the value of life does increase, which tends to increase moral and ethical behavior. And this is quite the conundrum to Christians and believers of all religions and supernatural concepts. Once we tend to let go of these, most of us would say, you know what, I tend to value the human life more now than when I was a believer. Now, an example would be what I discuss quite often, using the Christian spectrum or the religious spectrum. The further you are on the religious spectrum to the right, evangelical fundamentalist Christians, you're caught more up into the supernaturalism, what Paul the Apostle talked about in the book of Romans, right? Walking in the Spirit. But what happens here, the more you are on the right in the Christian spectrum, the way I used to be, it seems those people have less of a tendency to value human life because it's all based on supernaturalism. Instead of social justice and meeting the needs of humanity, it's more about saving the soul. Now, the Dark and Middle Ages, back when Christianity and Islam ruled the world, back then it was normal to commit torture to other people. There was cruel methods of death to unbelievers. The emphasis was upon the soul rather than on the human being. And that's why you see in the Christian spectrum, the more progressive liberals and liberal Christians on the far left tend to emphasize things like we do in secular humanism and atheism. It's more about the human, the valuing the life of humanity and equality for all. The Enlightenment helped us to see that human lives are to be valued, not the fictitious soul. That's what happens. When we let go of Christianity and these primitive belief systems and myths, we tend to value life more. And another reason we do is because we know this is our only life. We have one life to live here on planet Earth, and we want to make it the best place possible. That means being good to all and helping humanity in every way we can. We don't believe in immortality. We don't believe in going on to be with Jesus in the sky. We know that this is our one and only life. We live it to the best we can, and we want to be good to all and make this life better for everybody else. Not long ago, my friends and I were under the bridge where the homeless people congregate. We feed homeless people with other atheist groups. And I noticed a few months ago when I was there that there was a large bus that just pulled up. And on the bus, there was a Christian motto, logo, and a Christian cross and so forth. It was a group of college-age students from a particular university from Louisiana. They were making a tour from Dallas through Waco, through Austin and San Antonio, scooting over to Houston and back up to, I believe, northern Louisiana. Their goal and mission was to go out to save as many souls as possible. Now, my question to these people was, and I did ask some of them, when they came out of the bus, did they have food? Did they have clothing? Did they want to value the life of these needy people, or was it about saving the soul? Actually, it was about the spiritual, saving the soul. They approached homeless people with their Bibles and with their Christian tracts, trying to convert people to Christianity. I approached a couple of these young people and told them what they were doing, and they said, we're trying to lead these people to Jesus. So what we do, we go out and value people, value human lives more than the supernatural, because we don't believe in the supernatural. So I would say that atheism is a better life. Most of us can say that. We're happier. Our morals and ethical behavior tends to increase. The value of life seems to increase because we have only one life to live. We value our lives. We value the life of other people and other living beings on this earth. We want to make it the best place we can. And we also make better decisions because we base our decisions on reason instead of the supernatural beliefs of a God or a prayer. So there you have it. Atheism, I would say, for most of us, it is a better life. And I tell believers when they say, oh, David, you poor thing, I'm praying for you. And my fellow atheists out there, when Christians tell you that, smile and tell them, oh, no, it's a better life. Tell them your testimony. Tell them what has happened once you let go of these myths and you progress on in humanism and secularism and atheism, that it is a happier, more moral and ethical life for the most of us. So thank you so much for watching the Preaching Humanist. Have a wonderful day.